In another minute or so, we'll just get started. Hope everybody did get a rest. Normally you come back tired after reading week. I know I do. I was away, so. Okay, so we'll get started. We're topic 7. Basically, it's how to manage human resources, and we're going to get into that. And in that case, it's all about what kind of theories in terms of management principles you can use to engage people, but in from a dollars and resources point of view, it's all about recruitment and retention, and we'll kind of get to that in a few slides. So I'll cover that off. All right, so we'll just kind of get into it. If anybody has any questions just before I start, I'm just going to put the chat up, and please, chat. Send me a note by chat if you can. I watch it most of the time, but when I start talking, I get involved on looking at my slides. If you see me looking this way, that's my one sort of screen that the presentation is coming from. And again, for some reason I mute myself, and that happens. I can't remember why, but just let me know right away, okay, so that I can not go on for a few minutes and then you don't hear me on the recording, and basically I have to start all over again. So I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your engagement here, and if there's any kind of pause, just chime in, unmute, chime in and ask your question. I'd be happy to answer that, okay? So let's just talk about the deliverables for this week 8. And the cupcake assignment was shown as due this Friday, March the 1st. And I'm going to extend the deadline because I know a lot of people have not quite got there yet. And I'm going to extend that deadline to March the 7th, right? So you'll have a little more time to work on that. And then what we're going to do here is I'm going to try to give you enough information to be able to do participation topic 7A and participation topic 7B. And also you can see to the right of the screen, there's 6 different Pearson Revel surveys that you should be doing this week to kind of get through that. And to know where that goes is that if you go to topic 13 and you look at participation 13B, you're required to submit a facsimile of all the surveys that you've done. And if you've done 25 or more, then you'll get a 3-mark bonus. And the instructions are all there. The instructions are also in the course outline as well, outlining that 3-mark bonus and how to get it, because there's some surveys that we used in participation activities that don't qualify for that 25 number. So that's the way to get around it, and I'll be marking it that way. Okay, so that's where we're going. Again, now you've got an extension on the cupcake assignment, and we're going to go from there. So let's talk about the participation topic of 7A, and it has 2 deliverables. And if you look at the orange here, you can see that you need to identify methods to motivate and or engage employees in 1, a family business, and 2, a large international business. And then we're trying to make the distinction between how a family business is run, and it's more nuclear and it's more of a an adhocracy in some cases, versus a large international business where there's very many people. So you're limited with the sort of face-to-face type of engagement, and you need to take other measures to get there. So and face-to-face type motivations. So we wanted you to realize that distinction by doing this participation activity 7A. Now you'll see right here, I put in this piece. This is just for information. You're not to answer the questions on this thing. Just take a look at the questions to give you some idea of how to motivate people. Just by the nature of the questions. Does your supervisor or someone at work seem to care about you as a person? Well, that would tell me that one of the things is show, as a management leader in your organization, show that you have empathy and that you care about people and you care about how they're treated, and and what impacts on them. So this is just to help you answer these questions, okay? And then what I did as well is I added this reference, and here's the link, and it's 15 effective ways to motivate employees, just to give you some more ideas around that. And then now you can take, you know, the information that you can glean from this chart and the information you can glean by the article and actually answer these questions, you know, for a family business and a large international business. So that's where that is for that participation activity. So any questions about that? Does anybody have any questions? Is it straightforward? So if it's straightforward, can I see a few thumbs up saying, yeah, it's straightforward, I think I got it. Okay, so I've got a hand up here, so let's, okay, so somebody have their hand up? So, you know, does someone have a question? Just
no,
unmute.
sorry, I was trying to get to the reaction and clicked the wrong one, sorry.
Okay, so I know you're engaged, that's, you know, that's the whole part, so thank you. Okay, so that's participation topic 7A, so now let's look at 7B. And what 7B is, again, it has two deliverables. One is you want to go back to topic 3A where your team selected a specific business, and then take the you know, maybe the key job in that business, and then create a job description for it. And again, you know, if you didn't quite do that in 3A, well then, you know, put an assumption in for a particular business, and it could be an existing business for that matter. You know, but it's just to get you through this exercise, and then do that, and then take a look at the second part is where now you've created this this job description, and I put this template in that you can use. So you put it in tabular form. You know, I don't think I put a this is just an illustration, so you know, just recreate this illustration, and then you can go through, you know, the key points of, you know, what to do in terms of how you create a job description. All right. So the second part now is you've got this job description done. I'd like you to create a list of interview questions, no more than one page, and to basically qualify someone for this job description. All right, and there's basically two aspects of qualifying. One is there fit, you know, and so you need to get into the personality type interview questions to understand if that person is going to fit. Do they have the right approach? Do they have the right mindset? Do they have the right personal attributes to collaborate with people and those kind of things? And you know, you're going through these personality type surveys yourself, so you should have some good ideas based on the questions that you were asked in those surveys. You know, you could apply that. The second part is, well, do they have the skills, the abilities, and the attributes to be competent in that position, right? So basically what you're looking at getting the right person in the right job, doing the right things, right? That's really what you're trying to achieve. And we're going to get into, you know, the HR recruiting and retention part of the, you know, why that's so important later on in the slides as we're going through. But that.
Sorry, Gary, you're muted.
I think I go mute when someone else comes on, you know, comes new into the meeting. So how long was I muted for? Where can you tell me where to leave off?
It was short. It was like only a couple seconds.
Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you. That was so appropriate. You know, so if that happens, and I think that's what puts me on mute, is that if someone new comes into the meeting, somehow I go mute and I don't.
Just did it again.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know what's going on here. So again, let me know when I go mute. I don't know how to control that at this point in time. All right, so just to bring your attention, we're going to talk about Herzberg, and he talks about motivators, and hygiene factors. And that's a good slide to go to. And you'll see you'll see a note on that slide to go back to 7B to be able to consider those pieces. When you're looking at how to motivate people and keep them in retain those people as well. So it applies to 7A and 7B. All right. Okay. So again, I talked about here. You got to know if they're going to be able to fit into that job. So I put a link in here to a paper, an article that talks about the 20 competency-based interview questions that you can ask. So you want to know if do they have the right talent? Do they have the right qualifications? Do they have the proper skills and abilities to be able to work that job and be successful? All right. So that's that piece. Okay. So that's the two participation activities. Any questions about that at all? You can unmute and ask me a question. Okay, I don't see anything. So how about a few thumbs up? Am I ready to get going? Okay, thank you, Dan. All right, I appreciate that. Okay, so here's a piece that I wanted to, it's right in the overall slide deck in topic 7. And the formula is performance is equal to ability times motivation. And I keep on coming back to this statement. Have you ever heard this statement? In that statement, here it is. You've heard this before. Knowledge is power, right? Knowledge is power. It's not quite that. I mean, there's a lot of very knowledgeable people that have all these skills and abilities and knowledge, and they're not actualizing that in society. You have PhDs that are driving taxis or whatever. So really the way to look at it, it's directed knowledge is power. So you've got a direction, you've got a way to be able to fulfill that. And that's no difference with performance is ability times motivation. And the motivation part is the directional piece that gets people to behave a certain way to achieve the goals of the organization and reach the outcomes of the vision, right? So that's key. So really understand that motivation is not just making people feel good about it. It's really trying to affect behavior from an organizational point of view to get things done. So that's a really profound formula to understand. All right, just like knowledge is power. No, it's directed knowledge that's power, and to understand that is life changing. All right, going forward. And another thing that I'd like to tell you about too is that employees leave their bosses. They don't leave the organization. And I, for one, I can give you my example. I mean, my last position at TELUS, I left my boss. I didn't leave the TELUS organization. The TELUS organization overall was probably one of the best career times that I've had in my overall, career timeline. But I had a manager who really didn't. It was hard to work for, and he made decisions that would complicate, what I was trying to do in the mandate that I needed to fulfill for some of our key customers, with my peers and all those things. And that's what led me to the fact that, it's time for me to move on. And that's why I moved on. And I never regretted that, from the time I went, so that's what happens. And you can see though, Gallup, which is, it's a premier consulting, what's the word, survey organization, it's a globally recognized. And it says, Gallup study says, managers account for at least 70% of the variance in employee engagement. So if you're not doing your job as a manager, you're not engaging those employees, so you're not getting people to be the best that they can be, and aligned to be able to get done what they need to get done, to make the organization successful. And motivation is really a way to get alignment, and alignment is the foundational power to be able to get things done in an organization. If you can align people with resources, with policies, with the mindset, with directional instruments like a vision and a mission, you've got something going for you. And don't ever forget that. It's that, what can you do? And it's not just one thing to reach alignments. It's many things. It's tools that you can give your people to perform better. It's training. It's giving them skills. It's in the documentation. It's in the policies. So that's really key. And so what that means is that management matters, but leadership matters more. And say a generation ago, there were leaders and there were managers. In today's world, you're a leader and a manager. And the leadership really gives you the part where you direct people, and the management, so the leadership is doing the right things and the management is doing the right things right. All right. And so that you'll get a lot more stronger employee commitment if you can bring those two elements to play in the way that you're going to be, a leader in a company and a leader manager in the company. Right. And here's some survey results to show you that. So, if you're a great manager, but a poor leader, you'll probably get about 38% engagement. But if you're a great manager and a great leader, look at the difference between all the other combinations. So it just points to that, the combined effect. And what are we trying to do, in this topic is to really give you a sense of how to be good leaders, how to motivate. And that brings me to another book, and I'll just put it in the chat here. And I think, if anything, read the summary off of Google, in the book, and it's called Switch. And it's by the Heath brothers. And what I like about their books, and I've read every one of them, but the book that's called Switch, they have this analogy of a rider on an elephant. All right. And if you take a look at, what the concept is, it's about transformation and how do you get stuff done with people in an organization, and essentially when you're doing stuff with people in the organization, what are you doing? You're doing change management. You're doing a transformation at each step of the way. So there's three elements in that book. And one is, direct the rider so that the rider knows where to take that elephant. All right. The second one is motivate the elephant. And what motivate the elephant is provide the tools, the conditions to be able to engage those people, to make them want to share that vision, be part of that vision and going through. And then the third one is shape the path, and shaping the path is taking away some of the obstructions that are in their way, giving them resources to be able to move through, giving them the tools to be able to be successful. And those are all the things that combine in terms of being a good leader and a good manager. So that's what you could take out of what I'm talking about right now. But look at the average commitment across all teams, and you can see above average manager rating, much higher commitment. And so what does that translate into? It means above average development opportunities. And from a personal experience, the bosses that I loved working for over all my 35-year career, as a technician and a manager and an executive, I can think of two bosses that gave me the opportunities to develop and really enjoy and reach fulfillment in doing stuff. They were the two that stuck in my mind, and that's when I was the most productive, across many of the roles that I was in. So it does make a sense, and I'm just telling you that from an individual, right, as it goes through. Okay, so we're going down this principles of management piece, and we're looking at this continuum, and now we're kind of in that era where we introduced behavioral view of management. And look at the pieces in here. Motivation is the process by a person's efforts are energized, all right? So you're motivating the elephant, direct the rider, and sustain towards attaining a goal. And how do you get sustain? Is that you need to, set the path, to be able to give them the tools and the capabilities, take away the obstructions, and help them through the challenges to be able to to get there. So motivation has three elements. It's the energy, that's intensity or drive. And I'll share this one piece with you in terms of being a leader, is that when you walk into the workplace during the day, or at the beginning of the work period, as a leader, people pick up on your energy, and if you demonstrate that intensity and that energy right from the get-go and you're consistent, they will pick up on that. And so that that's just another part of being a leader. It's to be consistent. It's to show this passion to get things done, and to be predictable. The direction, we talked about that. That's where the effort is channeled, so that that you're showing these people, what the right things are to do based on what the future should look like, based on the vision and whatever. So that's key. And then the persistence, sustain effort to achieve goals and satisfy a need. It's to, what gets measured gets done, in terms of measuring the right things, and being relentless in terms of getting to those outcomes that you need to get to. So that's all in a nutshell. Is what are you trying to do then? Is you're trying to affect the behavior of your workforce to be aligned and understand what needs to get done, and when it gets done, and how it should be done. And that's what motivation does, overall. Okay. So you're going to see a lot of theories of motivation. On this slide, I pulled this right out of your topic 7. And the thing is that, there's really two pieces. We're not covering every one of these different theories, but most of them. But look at it this way. In terms of theories of motivation, there's content theories. That's what drives people, right? So you get into the enablers to be able to get people to behave a certain way. So if you take a look at, let's say Herzberg's two-factor theory. So if you take a look at the maybe a different tactic to motivate them, that's that moves them, versus process theories, where that's the how. The content theory is the what. The process theories is how are you going to do that. So if you take a look at Taylor's motivation theory, it's based on scientific processes and a lot of measurement involved, and focusing on performance, and then bringing in innovation to be able to adapt to create better performance, right? So that's more on the process side. Whereas if you take a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's understanding at what level an employee is in that hierarchy of needs, and what kind of core values they have in that particular layer, to be able to affect, again, to get alignment, to be able to shape the behaviors, to get them employees to understand that they're part of a shared vision. And there's this famous FM station I keep on talking about, WIIFM, and it's what's in it for me. So as a leader, you take a look at where are those employees on the what side in terms of motivation, and look at what are their needs at that point, and satisfying those needs so they feel fulfilled and they feel energized to be able to, to get to those behaviors that you need to be able to, support the outcomes of the organization. So this is a really good overview of what that is. And then, so now we're going to get into some of the players. And again, we're into test 2 now. And I've already told you many times about, look at, what is highlighted in yellow. And then a lot of times under that highlight, I have some emboldened text as well that is kind of telling, and it gives you an idea of where to focus, on your studies in test number 2. And I understand there's a lot of material in this course. And so that's why I'm trying to do this. And again, it gets back to, how I want you to go through this. So what you take a look at is my commentary presentation is key to kind of direct you to what's going on. You go into the overall topic slide deck, which is about 70 slides in each topic. If you don't have enough information around that, then you start getting into the videos that Professor Powers has produced, because they're more specific on the concepts that you have to do. And if you still need more information, again, you go to the course outline, and the course outline shows you for each topic, what relevant chapters there are in the e-text that's related to this course under the, the e-text under the Pearson platform, and you could read more to be able to understand that. So let's talk about Mary Parker Follett again. She's a very important piece, and she coined the term win-win, and this win-win it's pervasive. Everybody really understands what that is, win-win. And it ties into my FM station, WIIFM, what's in it for me. So if you understand your employees and you understand their core values and what they really need and want to be able to be part of the organization, then you allow them, to be able to collaborate and you look at satisfying their needs as they satisfy the needs of the organization to move forward. And so on the next page, what it is about is that it's not force and coercion and domination and control anymore, or motivate by fear. If we go back maybe 3 or 4 generations, when my grandfather was working for International Nickel in Ontario, basically if he didn't do his work, they said, listen, Tony, if you don't do this, we're going to fire you. And there's 4 other people that want your job right now. That was sort of the way that things got done back then. But in today's world, it's about, it's about alignment and getting those people to really want to come through. And you just take a look at, different cohort groups. So I'm a boomer, right? And in my upbringing in terms of getting into the labor force, I lived to work, right? Whereas millennials, they work to live today, so they want a balanced workforce. We need to understand that. And then, if you take a look at what Mary Follett is trying to do, she talks about power with shared power, respect, collaboration, and something that you should know about leadership. Leadership is not just leading. Part of leadership is knowing when to follow. And if you're a good leader, you'll engage some people with far more expertise or experience in certain areas that you have, and you allow them, to take the lead in what they're doing. And again, you have to validate that. It's, you just don't let anybody do what they need to do, but you allow them and you follow them, and you encourage, the rest of the team to be able to, work and, under those, under that kind of direction to get things done. And that's really kind of the essence of win-win that Follett talks about. So the potentialities of the individual remain potentialities until they are released by group life. So you can see that what the quote is: the man discovers true nature, gains his true freedom only through the group. So you allow those people to reach that self-actualization that Maslow talks about, to be able to do the best that they can do, and they do it for much better reasons. Okay, so that's that piece. And then came Ronald F. Roy. and again, you can see that it's highlighted, so you better know a little bit about Ronald F. Roy. But he talked about, motivation and self-actualization, how workers experience time. And you can see now when we talk about self-actualization, there's a lot of cross-pollination, amongst these theorists. So obviously Donald Roy, knew a little bit about Maslow was doing, right? So that you can see how that kind of comes together. But if you take a look at what he was studying, he was studying, workers that don't have very much variability in their work job. So let's say in a lot of cases is boring, and they don't feel, that self-actualization. They don't feel like they're really being part of the organization that's producing something special, right? And part of that is mindset, right? So what he came up with is that how can you find enablers around that work to be able to give those workers, again, a little more sense of yeah, they're part of this organization and they're making it happen, and we loved working with the people that we're working with. So he introduced this piece about banana time. Not going to talk about it, but essentially it was like they were I think they were hiding or going into somebody's lunchbox and stealing their banana or something like that. But the thing is that the whole idea is that the work is made more tolerable by relationships with coworkers and off-task activities to break up the day. So there's different means to be able to motivate. And I know that in my career experience, I used to take my teams out, out of the work setting and do some, team things like going bowling or, going out and doing some sort of training, that we did as a team and whatever. And that really, I can speak that I really got a lot of success out of that, because then people really felt the camaraderie and they felt the connections to be able to get something done as a group. And I think Roy, Roy brings that to life in what he's doing. And here's another one that's really important. Again, you can see the highlighting of what's going on, but it's David McClellan, and he talks about 3 factors that motivate people, and regardless of their gender or culture or age or people, his research shown that there are these 3 factors, and individuals have a dominant motivational factor. My dominant motivational factor has always been achievement. I always like to, get my hands on some kind of work where I can produce an outcome and say, see, I did this. I feel really good about getting this done. And just out of work, I'm a do-it-yourselfer, right? And I've done many projects, and the thing is I've really got a lot of satisfaction out of, I built a cottage. I did a lot of renovating in many of the homes that I owned, and felt really good about what I've done. And here's something you should remember too, is that they say that you work your passion. Sometimes you don't have a particular passion, but if you're working towards achievement and you're feeling that achievement, that's what fuels passion. And you could find yourself having a passion for something you never thought you would have had, because you've gone through a process of getting successes, towards being more accomplished in what you're trying to do. And that again is related to the achievement part. But here's the piece. So some people have a predominant need for achievement. That's me. Some have a predominant need of power. Well, most CEOs in organizations, that's really what got them in those positions. Some people have a need of affiliation, and you'll find a lot of those kind of people, they're centered around service industries or hospitals, fire service, because they're part of the team. So I want you to kind of take a look at these 3 factors of need, and then go through and read this stuff. So achievements, strong need to set and accomplish challenging goals. Affiliation, affiliation is I like to be liked, right? But wants to belong to a group, wants to be liked, and will often go along with whatever the rest of the group wants to do, favors collaboration and competition, and then the other one is power. So wants to control and influence others, likes to win arguments, enjoys competing and winning, enjoys status and recognition. All right, so those are the dominant motivators, and then understand that. So you as a leader, understand where you are and what is your predominant, need in terms of achievement, power, and affiliation, and then understand, what are the predominant needs of your workers, and all of a sudden now that really takes you to a different way of managing those different types of people that have those different types of needs. And there was one article I came across many years ago. It was from a premier HR company that's a global company. And what they said is that you should have at least 4 different management styles that you can work in. And again, you'll have a predominant style, but understand that if you have that, you'd be able to resonate, with those different workers and apply the principles of those particular styles based on, where that person is in terms of their 3 needs. And guess what? Those needs of achievement, the need of power, need of affiliation, are tied into the core values that those people have as individuals. And so you need to understand that as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Abraham Maslow now, and I think this, Maslow really kind of he's pervasive in terms of what he's come up with in this hierarchy of needs. So let's just look at physiological needs. So you can't move up this hierarchy unless you satisfy each one of these levels. So you're not looking for safety needs when you're starving, all right? So you need to deal with those physiological needs, before you could even start thinking about safety needs in terms of personal security or employment or health property. And then if you're not confident in yourself, how can you get to the next level, of love and belonging? The person that wrote the 7 habits of highly effective people, right? What he said is that in order to be interdependent, you need to be independent first. I mean, you need that confidence before you can be interdependent, right? So the thing is that you need to be confident in these bottom levels before you can really maximize the relationships in terms of being interdependent. All right, and then once you've achieved that, then you're into the esteem level, the respect, self-esteem, the status, the recognition, and then at some point in your life, you really get into self-actualization. And self-actualization is sort of the Gandhi moment, when Gandhi did things altruistically, so it never felt that was so confident in coming through that progression of needs, that was looking at how do I affect the world, how do I affect the global aspect of what can be done well for mankind, kind of thing, right? And it's the desire to become the most that one can be. And I keep on talking about this in terms of business mastery. You should, I shouldn't say you should, it would be good to consider taking a look at mastery as being a business practitioner, and see where you can take this, rather than just getting a certification and then start working for a company. If you have this reason why you want to do this, and if you have a pure vision and a personal mission of what you need to do, you will reach self-actualization a lot sooner. All right, so I'll leave that with you. So I'm going to do something just a little bit different tonight. I want to do a what I call a 5-minute white space, right? And this is, to help get some engagement in this class. So I'd like people, to put up their hand and make a comment about, many of you are working already, and you're managers and you have this experience. So I'd like to hear about, have you learned anything in this course that maybe you're applying right now in your job, or is there where you are working, is there something that you'd like to improve? So I'd like some people to just unmute and give us a story about yourself, if you can do that. So I'm going to look at that for 5 minutes. It's it's 7:10. We'll go to 7:15. All right. So Dan, go ahead and unmute and talk. And then Alicia, you can go next. Okay, Dan.
Yes, sorry, Gary.
Yeah.
You mentioned a while ago regarding you like your organization, but you don't like your boss. From the time you leave, from the time you leave, how did you come up on your final decision to really leave your company, allowing yourself to give time to think? Like, for example, if you really did a good decision before leaving your company, is it days, weeks, or?
No, it was
Because
months. It was months.
because
it didn't happen
I'm
overnight, right?
yeah.
And what happened there is that at that point in time I was the vice president in the operation, and I had 4 counterparts, for different areas of the business, and one of my key clients who had a little bit of an ownership part of TELUS, we agreed that we were going to follow certain conditions to maximize or optimize their business requirements to run through our data switches. And my boss allowed some of my counterparts to undermine that. And I guess I could, at my personal expense, but that wasn't it. It was the fact that, here we didn't honor an agreement with a major customer. And that said to me, you know what, this isn't working for me. And I don't want to become somebody, I don't want to be. And I decided to move on. And I never regretted that decision. I lost a lot of money, but I never regretted that decision. But thanks for that question. Okay, so Alicia, do you have something to say?
Yeah, hi. So I guess in terms of like the material so far, I find a lot of it's been quite helpful. I work in a management position right now at a company that we grew kind of exponentially. So a lot of the hierarchy and the separation, some of the kind of the organizational side of things was very lacking because we were a very small company, and now we've grown almost tripled in about 18 months. So all of those procedures and that organization kind of got implemented extremely fast. And recently we've come up with a lot of this motivation. How are we rewarding employees? That doesn't have a cost in a sense, trying to find alternative ways to motivate employees, which kind of trying to do that. What does the employee value? So I find a lot of it, like as we're growing, we're doing it, which is helpful because I'm learning it at the same time we're trying to implement it.
Yeah.
So I'm finding a lot of it is very hands-on practical for me right now, which has been quite benefit for sure.
Okay, so I'll give you a little story about the growing aspect and how to connect with people. A lot of it is around letting to create this identity amongst the group. So one of the major programs I had in TELUS is I ran a service delivery, a business improvement program, and this service delivery was $60 million in operation and maintenance, and 1,200 employees. And what we did was we brought 60 people in from all across the province to train them in Edmonton, and we had them for 3 months. And a few things happened. One is that we trained them how to do meetings. We trained them in change management. We trained them in how to do process flow charts, and we trained them in total quality management in terms of service levels and what an internal customer was versus an external customer. So we gave them a lot of tools, and you could see that their self-confidence just really started building because they had more capabilities in how to solve those problems. But here's what we did as well, is that just, we didn't spend very much money. We bought 60 blue, they weren't t-shirts, they were sort of these like a sports talk, and identified the overall business process team. And what we did was we had an overall forum, a company forum in head office, where we brought in a lot of employees, and we featured these 60 people on what they've achieved. And I still remember this like it was yesterday. They were all in one block of seating, and we asked them to stand up, and they were so proud. And you wouldn't believe, how that created, we created like missionaries, like, because when they went back to their locations, they really took up the cause, and because they had these tools and they had this connection now with us, and we ran a newsletter, and that program was a highlight career for me. But we actually took out and this is I'm not exaggerating, from 20% of the cost out of some processes to 40% of the cost, just because they started learning how to work together and achieving something and feeling good about what they've done, right? So it's not just paying them more money or giving them training and development. It's doing it with a purpose, right? And I think that's really what helps. So I hope that maybe that story kind of can give you a few ideas, Alicia, on where to take the next step.
Yeah, definitely, because I think that's definitely where we're trying to, because it's not always about money. If you enjoy your job, you enjoy your job, but if you despise your job, more money is not going to make you happy. It's not going to make you productive.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, and same with the job descriptions, and trying to just dig deeper into the employees and what motivates them, and how we can use that to build the business as a team, because the growth can't sustain if everybody's not in it to win it, kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at the police force or the fire service, they have a high identity component. They're all in uniform. They all understand they have each other's backs. And so that's built into the culture. So how can you find those kind of enablers that you can build into the particular culture, and they create an identity outside, inside of that piece? That gets to be really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So we're kind of over the 5 minutes. So thanks for for Dan and Alicia. Thanks for the input. And I'm feeling pretty good about what happened here. Right. So I'll get back to the presentation. Okay. So this is a key piece, and I'll just kind of elaborate on this. So I don't say this lightly, but I had the privilege to work with Brian Hall and Tona out of it was called Values Technology, a group out of California that we brought into TELUS, and we surveyed somewhere in the order of 1,500 employees to get a sense of where their core values were, and unbeknownst to me is that okay, I'm gonna have to ask somebody to unmute or to mute here. Okay, let me see here. Okay, thanks. All right, unbeknownst to me, their platform, if you turn this on its side, you can see physiological needs, safety needs, love and belonging. And here, I'll get to it. So this was a really interesting piece of work that I did, and it was, I totally enjoyed it. So I'll just kind of show you how you can do this. All right, so here's their process, and what we did was, what this line is that this was sort of the a mean line of where people in out of those 1,500 respondents where they were. So some of the respondents were here in terms of the section 3 of belonging. Somewhere down in here in the surviving piece. But where we saw the predominance was self-initiating, and the thing is that when you understand what the major part of your workforce is, where they stand in their core values, then you can see where the goals that would really engage them could be in terms of allowing them to see some self-actualization and to recognize service as a vocation and give them some pieces. So what we did was, as a result of these surveys, we started adjusting or calibrating the vision and the mission and the goals of the organization to meet with the closest of the core values of the workforce, based on those 1,500 respondents. And it was, and really, this is Maslow's theory in practice. And we really achieved a lot more alignment, and alignment is power. And I'll just give you this little example around alignment is that, okay, so I'm running in the Gary Harris track upstairs, that track around the basketball courts or whatever, and I perspire. So I got a little drop of water. Well, I just wipe it off, right? And wipe it off with a towel. But think of a gazillion drops of water in a hurricane going in the same direction. That is alignment. And if you can align with core values, you can align with your policies, you can align, with your practices, your best practices, align with the tools that you have in PeopleSoft and project management, and have this. Can you imagine what an organization can achieve if you get all these pieces aligning going forward? And I think that's the biggest message in HR is really what you're trying to do is you're trying to affect behaviors to get the right behaviors to be able to achieve the goals and the outcomes of the organization, with people really engaged in doing that because they feel part of it. They have an identity. If you take a look at Google employees or they really feel like part of the organization. They're really proud of where they work. That's what you really need to work for, in an organization. So that's where that piece, and we'll get back into into where we are here. Okay. Okay, so we talked about Maslow. I talked maybe a little too much more about Maslow, but let's talk about Victor Vroom. All right, and again, you can see that there's some highlighting here. So Victor Vroom is a pretty important guy in your test number 2. So individuals tend to act in a certain way based on expectations that the action will be followed by a given outcome, and on the attractiveness of that outcome to the individual. See how we're engaging that? What's in it for them? But yet we place expectations on them, but we give them the tools to get there. All right, so that's basically what we're doing is, we're motivating the elephant, in terms of, the Heath brothers in that book called Switch. And so here's the model that he came up with. So what you're doing on the individual effort is that you want those people to be able to improve their ability as an individual to perform. And give them, the tasks and provide the training, and then what'll happen then is you start looking at the relationship between what you expected and then the performance that you're getting. So that's the first kind of measurement of what's going on. And once you start getting to that point, then you can start focusing on individual performance. So what are you doing in individual performance is that you're increasing the individual's belief that performance will lead to reward. So what you've done is that you're making this linkage between, okay, you're going to align with the goals of the organization, you're going to increase your productivity and the outcomes, and we're going to reward you for that. You're part of this, so you've got a stake in the game here. That what's in it. What's in it for me. That we're really creating that effect. And then what happens is then you start getting into the organizational rewards, and that's what this improving valence means. You make sure that the reward is meaningful and to the individual. Just getting back to Alicia here, just providing specific acknowledgement. I mean, specific acknowledgement to employees, and celebrating their achievements in public is so key. So that when if you're going to acknowledge somebody's contribution, you don't just talk about that in generalities. You talk about it in terms of what they did and how they did it to be able to achieve what they did it, and it was because of their perseverance or their innate ability in a certain area. So you're celebrating those capabilities, and so that you're really making it a personal thing, and you can do that without spending money. And that could really get people together. So I can think of at TELUS, what we did is we would get together all the VPs in Vancouver about twice a year, and it was a crazy thing. But the president would bring out a champagne bottle and would feature somebody's contribution and give them that champagne bottle, and it was like the Academy Awards, and everybody looked forward to it, and they celebrated contributions, and it's all done through expectancy theory, really. And at TELUS, you had to perform, because on the other side of it, if you didn't perform, 18 months later you'd be going out the door, right? So it had sort of a two-way street on that, but that kind of highlights what Broom's expectancy theory is. And then you get down to individual goals that align with the organization and make them feel through the self-actualization, achieving something great for the organization as an individual. So that's where that is. And then we talk about McGregor, right? And Douglas McGregor's theory has been around for a long time. And so what Theory X is, it's workers have little ambition. So it's it's part expectation, and people will meet your expectations, but it's the assumption that workers have little ambition. They want to avoid responsibility, and so that what do you do then is that you're an absolute authoritarian, and you have tight control, no development, procedures. So you treat them as if they don't know very much, and to get the performance that way. Well, guess what? That doesn't quite work in today's world. It works in some areas, where people do have enough leverage to be able to to threaten, I guess. But that was 2 generations ago, and it's kind of waning. And the thing is that then he looks at theory Y, and theory Y is about, well, it's the expectation that the worker enjoys the work, that wants the responsibility, that wants to exercise self-direction, and I can think of a really good example there is in terms of experts in their field. So you're going to be a manager, leader, and you'll bring in an expert to help you solve a problem or whatever. You're not going to tell that expert exactly what they're going to do. You're going to ask, what they can do about how they're going to solve this problem for you, and basically, tell the expert, what you're looking for, and then leave them alone to be able to do what they need to do. I mean, that's theory Y, and give them the resources that they need to be able to accomplish what they've set out to do. So it's liberating. You're looking at achievement and continuous improvement achieved by enabling and empowering and giving responsibilities, and that's sort of more along the lines of where we're heading. And just to keep in mind, right? In today's working deal, right? If you take a look at companies, you're not looking for lifetime work with a company anymore. It's just not there. So what a company does, it gives you the opportunities, it gives you training and development, and in return, you satisfy the goals and the objectives of the organization. Okay, so essentially what we are is we're all contractors. And when you're looking at pulling an expert, out of say South Africa to do something for you specifically, theory Y is the only way to go, right? So understand that theory Y is a big proponent of motivating these kind of people that have these skills and abilities that chances are you don't have, and respect and encouragement and empathy and all those things work in that theory Y piece. Okay. And then we have Frederick Winslow Taylor, and no doubt you can see that he was a mechanical engineer, and so no doubt he would be father of scientific management. But it's an approach to managing people, process design, and so he created these principles. And the thing is that he's looking at management, according to scientific methods. So that's not so much behavioral. It's sort of, okay, let's improve this process. Let's give people the tools and the capabilities that they need to be able to, get to the outcomes. And we're going to do it using what gets measured gets done, right? So that we're going to measure what's going on. I'll tell you a little bit about, so when I was in college, I worked underground in Northern Ontario in a mine. And part of Taylorism was there was this time and motion study people. And what they would do is they would come down and they'd measure the production outcomes of drilling and blasting over one shift. And then they would do that, and several times, and then come up with an average of what a shift should achieve in terms of how much what we would call ground we could break, of ore to come in. And then they say, okay, so this is what a shift can do. Now, if you do 10% more, we're going to give you an incentive. All right. So that was one example of how they did that. And oh, by the way, we're going to give you better technology even to be able to to break that ground, better drills or whatever. Okay, so we've got someone here that still I have to. Did I need to come down and? Okay, here we are. I think. Okay, we got it. All right. So that's that's how Taylorism kind of came about, and then here's another duo here in terms of Paul Lawrence and Nidhi Naria, and they talked about the 4 biological and social drives. And the thing is, if you take a look at the 3 factors of motivation, they're pretty well tied into here. So you can see that these theorists are, they're watching each other and they're picking things from each other and then developing the concept further. So that you should really understand what this is all about. Drive to acquire, take control and retain objects and experiences. That sounds like, a need for achievement, right? Drive to bond from social relationships. The need to, come together with people. The drive to learn, the drive to defend. This is a little different now. Drive to satisfy curiosity and understand ourselves and know that how this process works, so that you can see that these drives then can be, if they're recognized in people, they can be motivated in a way that will shape their behavior to reach that goal. And how do you do that? Well, you establish, and I would call this corporate norms rather than social norms and past experience to be able to find the right motivators to get the right behaviors, and then using the right models and personal values to get to those right behaviors. Because I talked about these personal core values that are so important in today's world. So this is this 4 drive theory is really a good place to learn more about how can you affect behavior in people based on their unique drives, and what their predominant drives are, depending on their personalities. And that's why it's so important to be able to, within the context of the law, profile people to really understand, what is it about them, what's in it for them, to be able to get the most out of their desire to be able to align with the organization. Okay, so I want you to kind of read these pieces through to be able to get a sense of, what is it about drive to acquire? Are rewards tied to performance in the organization? So now you've got some enablers to tag onto, how to accommodate drive to acquire, how to accommodate drive to bond, how to accommodate drive to learn. And oh, by the way, take a look at your participation activities in 7A and 7B, and there may be some really good ideas here to be able to come up with in doing those team pieces. So here's one of my heroes again, Frederick Herzberg. So here's the factors that motivate workers that are different from the factors that demotivate. So he came up with these two areas, the satisfiers and the dissatisfiers. And when we talk about hygiene factors, if I can talk about gambling, poker, playing poker, you need a certain amount of money to get into a poker game. They call that table stakes. You got to satisfy, to get into the game, right? That's what hygiene factors are. If you've got working conditions that are poor, chances are people are just going to leave, all right? But if you want to motivate them, you got to find a different way of doing that. This is just, just stopping them from being dissatisfied. And this will, this can cause people to leave, but they can't make people motivated on this side. But on this side here, this is where you motivate them. And here's something to remember in terms of and this is North American research, right? But let me take an example of an accountant, right? So you have an accountant on your workforce, and the accountant's been there, say, for 5 years. So what have you done? As an organization, you've trained that accountant, to be specific to the needs of the organization. You've developed that accountant, in terms of putting them on different courses and to learn how to use, say, ERP platform, enterprise resource platform to be able to, integrate everything. So you've invested a lot into that. And for some reason, the hygiene factors in the organization, and maybe it's about, the physical or relationship with peers or whatever, it's sort of a toxic culture, and that accountant leaves, right? So think of this. So the first thing that happens is that, that accountant has some corporate memory that leaves the organization that it's hard to get back. That's the first thing. Second thing is that, you've that accountant had a network and worked in that network, and all of a sudden now with that accountant leaving, the network is compromised, so that the productivity of their own network is compromised. And then another piece is that on average, it costs 6 times the annual salary of a worker to recruit a replacement. 6 times the annual salary. So not only is the organization, being, losing money in terms of cost, but they're losing all these other things that associated with that. So I think Herzberg's two-factor theory really kind of puts things into perspective on what you should be looking at in an organization. Okay, and so now this gets back to, designing the job in activity 7B, in terms of the motivators, and think about the hygiene factors as well. So when you're doing that, so here's one, the tasks are combined to, well, is there skill variety that keeps people engaged? Is there task identity, so they can see that they've accomplished something. So you can I think it's one of the manufacturers, and it might be Audi, is that they don't really have an assembly line. They have people that come together to assemble that vehicle, and they have more kind of self-fulfillment because they can see the actual end product, right? That's what this task identity is all about. And then tasks, how significant they are and how much autonomy. So those are the kind of things that you build into job design. And again, it depends on the business. Is it a family business? Is it a large business? It depends on the industry. It depends on the customer base. So that all these things have to come into play when you're designing the job. And again, recruitment and retention really is the key. And so I made an argument here for retention because of 6 times an annual salary to recruit somebody. But the whole idea again is what you're trying to do is you're trying to fit a person, a worker, have the right person go into the right job to do the right things, for the organization, and that's all part of that equation, is training and motivating and keeping competent employees on your workforce, because as you gain corporate knowledge, in terms of the corporate memory and the capability, what are you doing? You're really looking at competencies, and so those turn into organizational skills, which are a very large component of competitive advantage, right? And so that you gotta think of recruitment and retention in terms of overall competitive advantage of your organization, right? And so here's some a piece that go back into the slide deck and understand how this process works in terms of rewards and health and safety and those kind of things. Okay, a little bit about recognition rewards. We talk about open book management, and what that is, you can see the impact of their decision on financial results of the organization. So I'm gonna use the chat again, and I'm gonna put in this. Oh wait, I didn't. Okay, they're switched by the Heath brothers. I'm gonna put in a reference here. Jack Stack. Jack Stack. And Jack Stack is one of the pioneers of open book management. And it had to do with a farm implements organization that was going broke, and the employees bought it out. And what Jack Stack did was that everyone had a stake in this now, right? What's in it for me? WIAFM. They were all owners. And what Jack Stack did was that Jack Stack opened the books and said, look at this organization is going bankrupt. And they trained everyone in the organization to understand the financials and to keep up with the financials on a regular basis, right down to the janitor, in the organization. And you talk about a force of alignment, because people now can, what gets measured gets done. They can see what's going on. They know how their job affects the outcomes of the organization, and they know that they have to perform a certain way to be able to become successful and have the company thrive again. This is a great formula, all right, for success in an organization. So that's one key thing in terms of employee recognition and rewards. The other piece is, employee recognition programs, personal attention from management. When I talk about personal attention, you focus on relevant acknowledgements of specifically what the people have contributed to and how they did that, and that'll do more for making people feel that, yes, I'm part of this and I'm being recognized and I feel good about this. And then pay for performance, yes, absolutely. Gamification, so using collaboration and competition to engage employees, offering prizes and whatever. I know at TELUS we had a recognition program where we could, we would get points, and then we can go to a catalog and pick out a reward like a telescope or whatever, and that worked pretty good. And then professional development and training opportunities, permanent contracts, and then understanding work-life balance. And then, and what that brings into is that, I talked about, millennials, and I talked about boomers like myself, understanding, cohort groups and what their general value sets are is so important, to be able to understand the key things. And I'll tell you just one other story about, I've been on the boards of a few credit unions, but one in particular, like First Calgary, and this was, a few years back. And what they found was that they bring in workers, as tellers, and they found that there was about a 6-month lifespan in their work. They'd be leaving after 6 months, and they couldn't understand why. It's a pretty good job. It was pretty good paying. The organization of First Calgary was, recognized for, real work community and collaboration and all those things. But they started getting into the actual aspects of each cohort group and what they were really looking for, and really came up with, they focused in on work-life balance and introduced flexible work schedules. And that 6-month average went to 18 months inside of about 3 years. So that's the complete evidence of understanding, what drives the employee in finding the right kind of recognition and rewards and conditions to be able to, to get that kind of alignment and worker retention, going there. So here, here's this, it's Roots of Open Book Management by Jack Stack and Jim Canfield, thegreatgame.com. And what it is that it shaped this critical position, that Jack's thoughts on how teaching everyone in the company the metrics of a successful and sustainable business through financial literacy and reporting is about the only sensible way to run a business. And I think that's a really good book to, I think this was an add-on that I put in my presentation that's not in yours. But you do have the Jack Stack on here on the chat, okay? So understand, what total rewards are all about. There's strategic compensation, there's skill-based rewards, there's benefits, there's work-life balance, there's career development. So know it that's really important. And you'll see in recruitment, here's the piece that you should really understand the selection process. And the thing is that, it needs to be reliable. So it measures the same thing, and it needs to be valid. Selection device is tied to a later job performance. So the thing is, you got to understand the job description and the job specification, like the minimum qualifications, to be able to come up with a selection process that really works well for your company. And I learned this the hard way. One more short story, all right? I ran, I spent a few more years back in Ontario. Like, we were in Alberta for 30 years, and we moved back to Ontario for 12 years because my wife's mother was needing some help and whatever. And I got to start and run the Wasaga Beach Film Festival. And I didn't appreciate that you need to really recruit people, regardless if they're volunteers or if it's a nonprofit or it's a profit-driven organization, with due diligence, with the right kind of discipline around that. And it's so important to understand what job descriptions are, so people aren't tripping over. And if I get back to you, Alicia, especially in a smaller organization, there's a lot of people doing the same things. It's just like, get the job done. But at some point in time, you need to, as you expand the organization, you need to be able to have more specificity around those jobs. And the worst thing you can do in a small organization is give people titles. And if you give people titles right away, it's a small organization, so you might have somebody who's manager of production and marketing, all right? And then the organization gets, larger, and all of a sudden, you need a production manager and a marketing manager. And so you need to split those apart. Well, that person had that title for 5 years or whatever, however years they were in there. They feel like they're getting demoted. They're saying, look, you're going to bring somebody in from outside and take away half of my work, and then I'm kind of like demoted. So don't use titles. You just stay away from those, and inform people that you're a growing organization and job descriptions are going to change. And then when you get to be a mature organization, then you can land on titles and go from there. And then specifying the minimum qualifications. So back to my Wasaga Beach Film Festival, I brought in people because I just had the expectations that, hey, they were community people and they wanted to to improve the thing, but I never really focused on what kind of talents am I bringing in, and will I be able to meet the requirements of the organization. So I had a lot of learning around that piece, and then also in terms of finding the right people, I had people that came in that had other agendas that I didn't test, and so the worst thing you could do is not to check out references and make sure that you're getting the person you think you're getting, right? So it's your selection process has to be reliable, and there's got to be some validity around the devices that you use to can be tied to later job performance. So that's key. So have a look at these things, and then recruitment is that continually look at what kind of core competencies that you need in your organization, and then over time. And the best device that you could use is the McKinsey 7S framework that we talked about, and that will give you an idea of what kind of capabilities that you'll need, to bring in the right people, to have them in the right jobs, doing the right things right. All right. I know that in my board experience, what we had is we actually profiled on our board the skills and capabilities that each board member had, and then we looked at 5 years ahead and took a look at what kind of skills and capabilities will we need 5 years from now, and then we started recruiting to balance that off so that as we moved into the future, we had the skills and capabilities to be able to satisfy the requirements of the business. So that's key. This is highlighted, so we're running out of time here, but I wanted to emphasize this workforce reduction that you should know about. I think I put this in. This is outside of the slide deck in the topic, but just to give you a sense of what this is all about. So a reduction in workforce, RIF, occurs when a position is eliminated and no intention of replacing it and results in a permanent cut in headcount. So so organizations are looking at maybe driving down their workforce to get, to match their costs with their revenues. And so what they'll do is they'll deliberately not replace some of those positions and then change other positions to make up for the requirements that the positions that we're eliminating, fulfilled. And so they're looking at natural attrition. So here's some workforce reduction strategies that you should be looking at, and knowing what's on this slide. I'm not going to talk about that. Just understand what the Hawthorne effect is all about. And the thing is that, okay, I'll just a little story about this, because this is interesting. In the Hawthorne effect, what they did was, they tried to change things like lighting to see if that increased productivity, and they tried different methods of improving productivity, and productivity did improve. But guess what? The productivity improved because they paid attention to the workforce. It wasn't the lighting that did it. And that's a big lesson, in the WIIFM, what's in it for me, and doing that. So I think that's that's about it for what I'm going to cover here tonight. All right. So I hope that I've given you enough where you can do your participations activities 7A and 7B. So comb all the slides, I guess, before you get started on that. And again, the highlighting really is to kind of getting you to focus on what to study for test number 2. And again, I'd appreciate any kind of comments that you'd like to make, during the webinar, or send me an email. And if you want me to talk about different things, or even if you want to bring up a situation that you have in your workplace that maybe we could do a little discussion on in our what I'm calling our 5-minute white space. Maybe next time we can do that. All right. So that's the end of the session. Just remember now, you've got a little bit more latitude on the cupcake assignment. It's due March the 7th now. Please tell your colleagues, and we'll go from there. So any comments or questions? Okay, we're all good. All right. So I will say good night for tonight, and we'll check in later on. Okay. Take care. I'm just going to stop the recording here.
Thank you, Sir Gary.
Oh, you're
Good
welcome.
night, and thank you, sir.
All right. Good night.
Have a good night.